You've spelunked into the Matt Cave.
Hello, everybody, and welcome into another episode of the Matt Cave. Thank you all so much for spelunking on by to this post-Thanksgiving episode. I hope you all had a wonderful holiday filled with football, food, and family in that order. And I hope that you are ready for life post-college football. You know, the older I get, the more I'm looking forward to the end of the season. It's a slog, it's a lot to take in, and now that I've expanded my horizons and I follow more teams, it gets more and more exhausting each week because I find myself having stakes in these games where in the past I just wouldn't care. You know what I mean? Especially about like Utah or Utah State, I just wouldn't care. And all my energy would be for BYU and maybe the Jazz or Real Salt Lake. Now, I can remove that fervor for the Jazz because I just can't stand them, as you all know, and you all know why. If you need a refresher, don't root and spend your money or time on a team that is actively trying to lose, like the Jazz. And that is now replaced by the Mammoth, who I am all in on, and it's been exhausting watching them. Yikes. I might go into that later in the episode, but this week it's mostly about college football, the college football playoff, and the BYU men's basketball team, just as a spoiler for what's ahead. So thank you all so much for being here. As always, like, comment, subscribe, wherever it is, however you listen. Thumbs up, 5 stars, quick comment saying, Matt sucks, I don't care. It just helps like those algorithms that run our lives. We all think the government runs our lives, but it's really these algorithms. So appease the algorithms for me. You do so great each week, and I really appreciate it. And you can follow me on Facebook and Instagram. That is the Matt Cave Pod. And you can find me pretty much anywhere your podcasts are sold. So there we go. So let's dive into it. And let's start with the Utah State game. The heartbreaking loss that the Aggies suffered against Boise State at home in Logan. And honestly, it was looking pretty good for the Aggies. 21-3 going into the half. And then Bronco Mendenhall happened. I said this a couple weeks ago. I'll say it again. Welcome to the Bronco Mendenhall experience, Aggies fans, where everything looks great. You might actually beat a team you're not supposed to beat or have any business beating. And then he gets scared. He plays to not lose instead of win. And his players sense it, so they try too hard. And you wind up losing a game you had no business losing. You snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. That is the Bronco Mendenhall experience. You're still going bowling, which is more than anybody thought possible, even yours truly. I said 4 or 5 wins on my preview. They beat that by 1. So there you go. Bryson Barnes had a rough game, 13-31, 184 yards, no interceptions, but a very key fumble that will leave a sour taste in his mouth and Aggies fans' mouths after a pretty stellar career at Utah State. He put the team on his back more often than not, and he'll leave as a very good memory for a lot of Aggies fans. So just forget about that fumble, okay? Okay. Other than that, Javen Jacobs had a huge game, 5 carries for 92 yards. That's a home run hitter if you ever saw one. And Miles Davis, the former BYU Cougar, 8 carries, 36 yards, and a touchdown. The defense kind of disappeared there at the end, not going to lie. They fought hard through most of the game, but then when it counted, Bronco Mendenhall, hello, I'm Bronco Mendenhall, I play to not lose. And he loses more often than he wins. So that is basically the experience summed up in a couple of minutes there. John Miller is still a force to be reckoned with, not a farce to be reckoned with, like Bronco Mendenhall is. Ike Larson, yeah, I think he's a Sunday player. I really, really do. I've said that for a couple of years now. Hopefully he can land in the right situation in the NFL, whether that's in the draft or as an undrafted free agent. But I think he is a Sunday-type player at safety. So there's a couple of good guys on this team that Aggie fans are going to miss next year. I don't know how you replace Bryson Barnes. I don't see anybody on the current roster that can do what he does, and then I don't see Utah State being able to go into the transfer portal at all, unless it's a guy who is very desperate to just play football. And I don't say that because Logan is, But it's because Utah State just doesn't have the backers of other schools. And that's where college football is at. Like it or hate it, I personally like it. I want the kids to get paid. That's just how it is. And free market, all this other stuff, capitalism, that's where we're at. So, really solid year for the Aggies, though. Really solid year. They just couldn't pull it out in the end because of the Bronco Mendenhall experience. TM. Not TM, but I wish I could, but no. All right, maybe he should copyright it, though. Let's move on to the other Friday game. Utah traveling to Lawrence, Kansas, and almost blowing it. Maybe Kansas is just the kryptonite of Kyle Whittingham, or maybe the kryptonite of Morgan Scalley. Because Kansas State and Kansas each rushed for over 250 yards. Uh-oh. That doesn't bode well. So Utah had dreams of a college football playoff at-large bid or even a Big 12 title game bid. Both were dashed these past 2 weekends because I hate the college football playoff. I hate how it's run by the SEC and ESPN. I really hate that those two are now in bed together with that massive contract that I think it was $5 billion or something like that. So we're going to get force-fed SEC garbage for a long time through ESPN. So suffice it to say that I will be using ESPN less and less and less and less as we move forward for a lot of reasons. When we get to the offseason of football, I'll have more time to maybe dive into why I just hate what ESPN has become. I think I'll do that. I think I will. But the 13th ranked Utes won't be 13th ranked anymore. They're going to drop again, which is frustrating because your team won. They just didn't win convincingly or handsomely. When they forced Jalen Daniels to throw the ball, they defended very well. 2 red zone interceptions and a game-sealing interception at the end of the game. They did really well when you're forcing the team to throw the ball. Their run defense has disappeared, and I don't know why. I had an inkling that it was because of what I described to you last week, and Kansas did do the same thing. They saw the same thing. They had their receivers and maybe running back go out and line up. Then they had the offensive line go out, 10 seconds before the play clock expires, snap the ball. Utah can't read and react. Maybe that's the problem. Maybe Morgan Scalley just needs to get the play call in there and just be like, all right, my play call is better than yours. I'm not going to react to you. You react to me. Because he is good enough to do that. So maybe those two offensive coordinators, Matt Wells and the offensive coordinator for Kansas, figured something out. We'll have to see how that goes heading into the bowl game as well as into next season. But Devin Dampier, he shows up when it matters. He did not become the quarterback I thought he was going to be this year. Hyper talented, and I thought he was just going to go, okay, it's all on me. I'm going to have to do everything. He didn't do that this year. Wayshawn Parker was a revelation. The dude is all Big 12 written all over him, and he's only a sophomore. So there's going to be a lot more of Wayshawn Parker in the future. Same thing with Devin Dampier. He's only a junior. And then you also have Bird Ficklin in the wings. Hopefully the Utes can keep him around and tell him, yes, you're the heir apparent to Devin Dampier, or we're going to have you more in the playbook, and we're going to be splitting time between the two of you. We'll see how that goes. And then Daniel Bray, that speedster, man, when he gets into open space, nobody can catch him. Larry Simmons as well started to show up when Ryan Davis got injured. So the offense is finding pieces. The defense is going to be losing a lot of good production. Depending on the severity of John Henry Daly's injury, he could be out for part of next season. That's really bad, both for the kid as well as the school and the team. Lander Barton's going to be gone. We'll see what happens with guys like Teo Johnson, Logan Fano, all of those guys on the defensive side, Smith Snowden. So we'll have to see what happens there. So it is going to be a nervy offseason for Utah fans when it comes to who's going to be staying and who's going to be going. And it starts with Kyle Whittingham. Is he going to stay or is he going to leave? Is he going to ride his Harley off into the sunset? Honestly, I don't think so. And that's going to anger a few Utah fans because there are a few that have been calling for Kyle Whittingham to retire for a few years now, saying the game's passed him by. The whole program over person thing doesn't work anymore unless you package it differently. Are you a Utah man or not? That sort of thing. Looking at this team this year, I don't know if Morgan Scalley could have done a better job as the head coach. I don't know. I don't think he could have. So I think Kyle Whittingham might have one more year left in him. But if he does, I hope that he leaves the school with enough runway to tell them, yeah, this is it. This is my last year. So the school can be more prepared. Morgan Scalley can be more prepared. And the kids on the roster can know that there's going to be a transition coming. I don't know what's going to happen this offseason. I wish I had a crystal ball to tell you. But the way Kyle Whittingham has been acting these last few weeks, it looks like he's got a lot more in the tank. So, winning will do that for you, right? So we'll see what happens. Utah beats Kansas in Lawrence 31-21 with 21 points in the fourth quarter. They're going to fall in these polls because style points matter. They shouldn't, but they do. And speaking of style points, let's move on to BYU. So early kickoff for BYU on Saturday, 11 a.m. local time. And it took them till about the second quarter to realize that there was a football game happening. That cannot be the case next week when they face off against Texas Tech in the championship game if they hope to have a breath of a chance. I'm going to talk about this game first, and then I'm going to dive into the championship game preview, and then I'm going to dive into the problems I have with the committee and how they view stuff. But first, let's talk about this UCF game. That first quarter was abysmal. Offense, defense, special teams, all of it terrible. Terrible, 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 all the way across the board. No other way to slice it. Then, when the second quarter started, things changed. BYU woke up. I don't know what Kalani Sitake said. I don't know if it was what the coaches were saying or if the captain spoke up or something. But a light bulb went off, and the team was different. Just overall, the team was different. The defense was hitting harder. The offensive line was pushing further. So something happened there. LJ Martin is a Mack truck. He is. 22 carries, 95 yards, 3 touchdowns for LJ Martin coming off of his career night against Cincinnati. Bear Bachmeier continues to stun me with his decision-making. Only once or twice a game now do I say, yeah, that was a freshman mistake. He's going to learn from it. That only happened twice against UCF with Bear. That's incredible. Are we sure this guy's 19? Are we sure that somebody didn't flub his birth certificate? I don't know if anybody else remembers, but like 2004, 2003, I can't remember, but Little League World Series, the team that had like basically college kids pitching. That's how I feel like with Bear Bachmeier sometimes. It's like, are we sure that Bear birth certificate is legitimate? I'm sure it is. That's just me joking around. The rest of the team showed up as well. Parker Kingston, career day again. 6 receptions, 126 yards, 1 touchdown. Did go down with an injury late. Hopefully it's not too serious. It didn't look too bad. He was smiling, laughing, jumping up and down. Hopefully it's not serious. Carson Ryan, I wish Bear Bachmeier used him more throughout the year. 5 catches, 85 yards, almost a touchdown. LJ Martin, they're using him more in the passing game as well. 5 receptions, 35 yards. So this team is doing better. JoJo Phillips still had a drop, a really bad drop. He needs to get that figured out, but he's young too. And this was only like his 5th game this year, so it'll get better. And then the defense. Holy moly. Raider Demooney with that fumble recovery. Evan Johnson with that awesome interception where he literally ran across the field to pick that ball off. Parker Kingston, he's back when it comes to kick returns here. That punt return touchdown. Just one cut and he was gone. That was great. Will Farron. Coming into the season, he was an All-American. He was a preseason All-American. Coming out of the season, he's a 50-50 if he's going to make it or not. That's not good. And going into a Big 12 championship and maybe a college football playoff, that's not good. I mean, Will Farron nailed 2 field goals, one from like 28 yards and the other from 50. So I guess that's what you need to do if you're Kalani Sitake. Is just, okay, are we plus 50 on the field goal? Let's send out Will Farron. Are we sub 30? Send out Will Farron. Anything in between, you don't send him out. because he's got the yips when it comes to that 31 to 49-yard field goal attempt range. He's got the yips. But the rest of the team was awesome. Jack Kelly had 2 sacks. Really wonderful send-off for him. And just only a couple of brain farts, really, throughout that game. So I was very pleased with what I saw from the second quarter on. The announcing crew they had was definitely their Z team. That was rough to listen to. I had to mute them after the first quarter. I couldn't listen to them. And then even watching the highlight package afterwards, they weren't, they just weren't that good. Oh man, the banter felt forced. The color guy they had, the Ohio State guy, they were talking more about Ohio State, Michigan than they were talking about the game they were supposed to be covering. Not good. Not good. That's my final word on that game. So BYU improves to 11-1. We'll see what happens with the rankings when they come out on Tuesday. I am expecting them to stand pat again. And now that leads me into what I want to talk about here. So, College Football Playoff Committee is supposed to be non-biased. It's supposed to be people looking at resumes that are not labeled. It's looking at these teams based off of strength of resume. You see that a lot on ESPN, CBS Sports, Yahoo Sports, all on these websites that still use human writers, so not Sports Illustrated. And you look at this, and you look at strength of record first. BYU is 6th in the nation when it comes to strength of record. So a strength of record reflects chance that an average top 25 team would have this team's record or better given their schedule. Only 5 teams would have BYU's record or better, according to this metric. Those 5 teams being Indiana, Ohio State, Texas A&M, Oregon, and Georgia. Teams behind BYU are currently in front of them. Key among them, Notre Dame. Notre Dame has no business being in the college football playoff. They have 2 losses. I don't care who those 2 losses came against. They'd have no business in the playoff. Period. End of story. Another one up there, Oklahoma. Oklahoma has no offense. They are a pain to watch. It is like giving birth, I am sure, watching Oklahoma play football. Alabama and Ole Miss are both behind BYU. Alabama is going to the SEC championship game, so there is an argument there that they could wind up with BYU's record with this same schedule. Ole Miss? No. And with Lane Kiffin rumored to be leaving the school, the committee says they take that into account when they rank these teams. They say they take into account not just the resume of the record of the schedule, but also key injuries to the team, as well as coaching staff changes. So Ole Miss should be behind BYU. Notre Dame is the one I have the biggest problem with. Am I sick and tired of the SEC? Yes, I am. Yes, I am. I say the rest of the conferences and the rest of the country should say, go play in your corner. The rest of us will actually play. Because I'm sorry, but teams like Kentucky, Vanderbilt, Arkansas, Mississippi State, Florida, Tennessee, none of those teams are doing well in the Big 12. None of those teams are doing well in the Big 10 or the ACC. I'm convinced. And that's half of the conference almost. Even Texas this year. So the strength of record has BYU at 6th. The FPI is the Football Power Index. It's some convoluted algorithm that ESPN Analytics has just spit out. I almost said something else. And so it's a made-up number that doesn't really matter. In my opinion, it shouldn't matter. BYU is currently ranked 15th in that. The AP CFP rank, that is not something the committee looks at. They don't care what the other polls have. At least that's what they claim. So they don't look at the coaches poll. They don't look at the AP poll. They don't look at the media poll. They don't look at any of that. Strength of schedule has BYU at 35th. which is better than Indiana's, it's better than Ohio State's, it's better than Ole Miss, it's better than Texas Tech, and it's better than Notre Dame. Notre Dame is at 42. Then there's another one that they talk about. It's called Game Control Rank. Basically what this is it reflects the chance that an average top 25 team would have control games from start to finish the way this team did given the current schedule. BYU is ranked 14th. Notre Dame has BYU beat here, but BYU is better than Texas, better than Vanderbilt, better than Michigan. I mean, it's just, the way I've always wanted this done, and I've wanted this done since I was about 14 years old, looking at March Madness back then. It's because back then it was the BCS and whatever. So 14, 15 years old, I just say take the names off of the resume and just look. So if we're talking basketball, you take the name off the resume, you look at their schedule, you look at their win-loss, you look at their opponent's win-loss record combined, and then you look at their top-performing players. You say, all right, which team is better? That's all you do. Maybe what conference they're from. That's it. And then you rank based off of that. That's supposed to be how the College Football Playoff Committee does it, but they don't. The SEC has too big of a voice. That entire conference can go pound sand, as far as I'm concerned. Same thing with Notre Dame. They can pound sand. Get out of here. So when it comes to what we're going to be expecting from these polls, these rankings from the committee, BYU is going to be left out on purpose because there is a bias against the Big 12. I'm not going to say there's a bias against BYU because that feels too homery. That feels like, oh, you got BYU goggles on. BYU fans have been saying this time immemorial. I get it. So I'm just going to say against the Big 12. Outside of Texas Tech, and Texas Tech has had to blow out every team they've played against to get even a modicum of respect. It's ridiculous. The Big 12 Conference, its officials, they need to do a better job of campaigning, of screaming from the mountaintop about how good this conference is, how deep this conference actually is. Because I don't see an average SEC team winning more than 4 games in the Big 12 Conference. I don't see it. So that's my anger with what's been going on with the College Football Playoff Committee. That's how I see it. And I just feel like the people that are in that room are so removed from reality that it's impossible for the average college football fan to give a crap after the regular season ends. And I really think that's where we're at. Is these guys and gals are up in their gilded golden tower, and then the rest of us are down here seeing reality. Okay, so that's my rant about the College Football Playoff, the College Football Playoff Committee, how it should be done, why it's done the way it is, and any perceived biases or just plain out stupidity that is out there. Man, it just angers me to no end. It really, really does. All right, so now let's wrap this up by talking about the BYU men's college basketball team. They won a tournament. They did. It was Mickey's Chocolate Adventure in Orlando. I don't know. It was something like that, run by ESPN. BYU beat Miami, and then they beat a Dayton team that is going to be winning their conference if they play like they did in the tournament. And they could be a top 6 seed in the NCAA tournament. I really can't see that with that Dayton team. That Dayton team was really good. So BYU wins that in-season tournament. They looked shaky, to say the least, in those 2 games. It's great experience for the team, not just because they were close games, but because they were close games in a tournament setting. You know, back-to-back games, not a lot of rest in between. You're tested in ways you didn't think you would be. So this team, I'm all aboard. I really am. I am all systems go. Just put the hammer down. I am on this bandwagon. The AJ DeBansa, Richie Saunders, Rob Wright experience. That three-headed monster is better than any three-headed monster in college basketball. I'm convinced. And yeah, I got bias there. But I'm allowed to have bias. I'm from the state of Utah. Sue me. Well, don't sue me. But that's how I feel. I mean, if one of those three is having an off night, the other two are good enough to pick him up. And then the role players know their roles. Kibakita he's a block party. Just waiting to happen. The dude can jump out of the gym. Mboop, the freshman inside guy, he can do the same. And then they've got other guys out there, Tyler Morris and Dawson Baker, who will knock down threes, and they may not be great at defense, but they're going to try their hardest on the defensive end. And then with Kennard Davis back, he is that wild card player. So I'm feeling really good about this BYU team. I am. I don't care that they only beat Dayton by 4. I don't care that they struggled against Wisconsin, Miami, and Dayton in the first half. That will get figured out. They have warm-up games pretty much the rest of this preseason before they get into conference play, except for the game on December 9th against Clemson. The rest of the teams, California Baptist, UC Riverside, Pacific, Abilene Christian, and Eastern Washington, and all of those games are at home. They got plenty of time to work out the kinks before they hit conference play, and even then, the first conference game is Kansas State. So this team could do something special this year. Their numbers are not what they were last year, but they'll get there. Currently, they're tied for 86th in points per game. They're tied for 119th in rebounds per game, and they're tied for 290th in assists per game. I know that number in particular ticks Kevin Young off to no end. That means somebody on the team is a black hole or a vacuum with the basketball. It's Rob Wright and AJ DeBansa. That's the black hole. But it'll get figured out. Kevin Young is that good of a coach. He'll be able to get it done. And this team will go far in March. If everybody stays healthy, obviously. Knock on wood, do whatever you have to. Say your Hail Marys. But if this team stays healthy, they're going deep in March. How deep? I'm saying Elite 8, maybe Final 4. Because AJ DeBansa is only going to get better. Robert Wright is only going to get better running Kevin Young's offense. Richie Saunders, we know who he is. He is an NBA player. Second-round pick, but still. 3-guy, can cut to the basket, get the hard fouls. So, yeah, I'm liking BYU men's basketball's chances this year. Utah, rough. Grand Canyon, oof. But they beat Ole Miss. So who knows with this team? We've seen the highs. They beat an SEC team when last year the SEC was the second best basketball conference after the Big 12. I am going to die on that hill. And we'll see what happens this year. This is a fun college basketball season. It is. Because there's fresh blood for Utah. There's a new direction. It looks like they are going to be investing in the basketball team in a way they haven't since Rick Majerus. So it's pretty cool. And by the way, the name of the tournament wasn't Mickey Mouse's Chocolate Adventure. It was Terry's Chocolate ESPN Events Invitational. I like my name better. Mickey Mouse's Chocolate Adventure. Well, we'll call it that. But that's the show this week, everybody. Thank you all so much for being here. Next week, I will dissect the Big 12 championship game as best I can. I'm hoping for a miracle, but Texas Tech is just too good. They're just too good. Top to bottom. So we'll see what happens in that game. And I will see you all next week. Oh, real quick. Utah Mammoth. I don't understand why the fans are so angry at the team right now. Because Clayton Keller's dad passed away in his sleep, reportedly. Unexpected. And they were on a back-to-back from Dallas to St. Louis. They played their guts out in that loss to Dallas. They lost by 1 goal. And then they somehow had to play another game in Clayton Keller's hometown with Clayton Keller's family there and the St. Louis Blues doing a very classy thing, doing a tribute and a moment of silence to Clayton Keller and his dad. The Dallas Stars, a club that I cannot stand in the least bit, haven't been able to stand the Dallas Stars ever, even back to the days of Mike Modano. They named Clayton Keller the first star. So, hockey is legit. I don't see the NBA doing anything like that, ever, unless your name is LeBron James. And the NFL, maybe, but probably not. I can see the MLS doing it, and Major League Baseball, who knows what Rob Manfred would allow. I doubt any of that, but the team is still going through the ringer. They're a young team. They'll figure it out, but Logan Cooley going down in the manner that he did, if you listen to St. Louis Blues fans, it was an unfortunate event. It was hockey. Logan Cooley was going 20 miles an hour, and knee hit knee. If you talk to some Utah Mammoth fans, you say it was a dirty hit. The guy should be suspended forever. If you're a neutral observer, it was an unfortunate hockey hit. It happens. So losing your best player, and yeah, Logan Cooley has become the Mammoth's best player already, is going to stink. The rest of the team needs to step up, and I don't see Nick Schmaltz or Barrett Hayton being able to do that. So I think a change is in the offing here for the Mammoth here very soon if they want to maintain a playoff pace. But the anger I'm seeing from Mammoth fans is incredibly dumb. Take a step back, breathe, look at the schedule, and then look at the real life that's been happening around these guys. These guys are human. This isn't your video game. They're human. And my full weight and support is behind this team. It is not going anywhere. And Clayton Keller is still my favorite player. And I don't know how he was able to play those 2 games. I don't know. I don't know if you would be able to. I know I wouldn't. So, I just wanted to add that in here at the end. Stop being so angry at this team. They're young, and the NHL's hard. So there we go. That's the show this week, everybody. Thank you all so much for being here, and I will see you next week when we spelunk back into the Matt Cave. You know, with college football season ending, I might actually have to start talking about the Jazz, and that is just pain.